Adam, we welcome you to noise11.com. Low Cut Connie is the name of the band. I mean, do I refer to you, Low Cut Connie, as a band, or is it a solo project? There were other people involved at one point. What's the status?
All of the above. I essentially I am Low Cut Connie. I work with different musicians and different collaborators, but I am the only original person from the group. And over the years of the years that we've had the group, it basically became a solo project.
Mm-hmm. And we're about to hit album number 6. 5 very impressive albums over the last decade. Let's talk about the new album first, and then we'll go back to the history of Low Cut Connie and what you were doing. The new album, Private Lives, comes at a very interesting time in, I guess, global history and what's happening with America.
Yes. Interesting is one word, yes.
Let's see that album cover again.
Sure. This is the record, and turns into a blonde on blonde style poster.
Blonde on blonde style poster. Is Bob Dylan a particular influence that you cite there?
Absolutely. I'm sure I'm one of millions of people whose lives he changed, and if there's one songwriter who I feel like really changed the world, it would be Bob Dylan. And he kind of he always inspires me to dig deeper. I always think with each record and each song I can be digging deeper. And when I started Low Cut Connie, people called us a party band. Now, Paul, there's nothing wrong with being a party band. My heroes, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elton John, Prince, James Brown, these are, musicians that are party starters, of course. But as the years have gone on, I like to say that just because it's a party doesn't mean we can't talk about real issues, right? So as the years have gone on, I've taken Low Cut Connie in other directions. I've done a lot of character studies. I've expanded the meaning of what rock and roll can be in 2020. And Bob Dylan has always inspired me to just dig as deep as I can.
I guess it goes back even further than that, just, looking at the images behind you with Little Richard there, Dion DiMucci, Fats Domino. Dylan came along in the 60s and it was folk, but, we're looking right here at people who even preceded Bob Dylan.
Yes, in fact, I've got an artist here who I love named Charlie Patton, who was a recording artist from Mississippi from the 1920s. And many, many years ago, I went to his grave site in Mississippi, and not a lot of people know his music, but he wrote some incredible songs 100 years ago. And he wrote about racism in America. He wrote about natural disasters that occurred in America 100 years ago, floods and earthquakes. He wrote about depression, and all these things are things that we're experiencing now. So his music has really been on my mind. I'm sort of obsessed with music that is timeless, and ask questions that anybody at any time can relate to. And that's why with my performances, I'm always trying to mix music from 100 years ago to 50 years ago to today.
With the inspiration that I guess you've had over this last 12 months, it's often said that through disaster, great things come out of bad times. And this is a year that we've never lived through before, 2020. The actual title track, Private Lives, just watching a performance that you did streamed a few days ago about what is happening in America now. The George Floyd situation, Black Lives Matter, this whole Trump circus.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be short of content for lyrics in 2020. That's for
No,
sure.
and it's true, Paul. And um, it it kind of bugs me when I talk to musicians and writers and they say I can't figure out what to write about. Um, there's so much going on in people's lives right now, and I'm not talking just about the United States. I'm talking about all around the world. Right? This year began, as you know, with the fires in Australia, and I have a lot of dear friends in Australia who are affected by them. Uh, this year has brought so many challenges to so many people all around the world. And if we can't use art to talk about challenges and brokenness in the world and in society, then what is art for? And so, as time has gone on, I've just sort of tried to use my music and my performances to try and ask questions about how people live, how people live. And so I put out a song back in February called Look What They Did. It's the first song that I released off of this Private Lives album. And it's a song about Atlantic City, which is a city on the New Jersey shore where I grew up every summer. And unintentionally, it's sort of a sequel to Bruce Springsteen's Atlantic City song from 40 years ago. And it's an examination of what it is like to grow up in a totally blighted urban environment today, right? Poverty, racism, police brutality, no jobs, uh, just tension and anxiety in the streets. And a city where 40 years ago, our current president here in the United States, he built all these casinos and he promised a whole lot of things to the city that never came true. And then he bankrupted his casinos and he got out and he didn't pay people. And it was just, I wanted to take a moment and shine a light on that because I have a lot of dear friends and family in Atlantic City. And I wanted people to think about what it is like to live there, what it is like to be there on the ground. I'm endlessly fascinated, Paul, with how people get by day to day. Old people, young people, black people, white people, gay people, straight people. Everybody wakes up in the morning and have to figure out how to get through another day. And that provides, ample material for writing. Really, there's never a short supply of things to write about because we can always look around us at people and how they're living.
I'm on the other side of the world. I look at what is happening in America every day and I just gasp. But if somebody a few years ago gave us the plot to 2020 in advance, it would sound like someone was trying to remake Biff from the future in Back to the Future.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Uh, it's but listen, Paul, on my performances that I do for people online, I try to I talk about real issues. We talk about political and cultural things that are going on in our country, in our cities. We talk about Black Lives Matter. We talk about the election. We talk about coronavirus. We talk about poverty. But I also, Paul, I use my art to try and lift people's spirits because I don't want people to feel helpless. I don't want people to feel like they have no control over these events. I want everybody to get activated. I want everybody to realize that we can get together and make changes. I want everybody to realize that there are things that we can all do to make our country a better place, a more just place. There are things that we can do to take care of ourselves so that we don't get depressed. There are things that we can do to lift other people up so they don't get depressed. And I call the show Tough Cookies because I want people to realize that they are a tough cookie, meaning they're strong, meaning they can get through things they didn't even think they could get through. And they're a cookie, they're sweet, they're compassionate, meaning they care about people, like we care about each other. And I preach that on my show. I use rock and roll and soul music to try to lift people's spirits and get their minds activated. And as difficult as it is, Paul, because I gasp every day when I look at the news too. But then I try and turn the page and say, what can I do? What can I do? What is the work I can do today to make things better?
You have the ability to articulate a mood just in a song title. The one in question I want to talk to you about, the fucking you get for the fucking you got.
Of course, you brought that one up, Paul.
That pretty much sums up 2020, doesn't it?
Yeah. You know what, Paul? I was reading a book. I'm a big reader and collector of books. And there was an actress back in the 1940s, 50s named Ava Gardner. Maybe you've heard of her. She was a fabulous actress, and she had an amazing sense of humor. And I read her autobiography, and in it she talks about um, how she was basically blacklisted in Hollywood for some of the things that she had done, and people that she'd pissed off that she dated and stuff. And she said, well, I guess that's the fucking you get for the fucking you got. And I had a song like that. I had a song like that. And I tell you, Paul, it's like, it sounds like a joke, but if you listen to the song when the record comes out, it's a sentiment we can all relate to, right? It's sort of like a hangover song, right? What do you do the next day? What do you do the next day? And so it's sort of like culturally and politically, certainly in America, we're going through it. We're going through a hangover right now, right? And we have to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move forward. So I'm glad you picked that song out.
Mm. How does this album compare to the first album in terms of speed and getting it together? Because that first album came together in just 4 days, didn't it? Get Out the Lotion about
Yeah,
10 years ago.
it did. This record was a mess to make. It took me 3 years. It was totally chaos. I had over 30 people. The lineup of the band kept changing. I recorded in 7 different cities and 7 different studios. I was recording in hotel rooms and in the Airbnb and in the lobby and at sound check and on my phone. And it was just a big mess. But then in 2019, I went and looked at the big pile of chaos that I created. And I realized that there was a very powerful record in there, and that there was something about the freedom that I had allowed myself during these years where I wasn't thinking about making a hit song, and I wasn't necessarily thinking about competing with the biggest pop stars of our time. I was just doing what I felt. And I spent the 2019 digging through the pile of 50 songs and all the little snippets of music and compiling this record that became Private Lives.
When we go back to that first record, the second one came along 12 months later. And then they started to space out, 3 and 4 year gaps. Why was that?
Maybe I started to space out. Um, no,
Haven't we all?
like this band, Low Cut Connie, this project, it was an accident. It was not a plan. And rock and roll is messy. Like, it took me the better part of 5 or 6 years uh, to get the band to a level in the United States where I could quit my day jobs and where I had a lineup of musicians that we could go on the road full time. And so for the first 5 years of the band, it was in between teaching and in between working. Um, I was still trying to grow the project, but I still had to pay my bills. And then after about 5 years, when President Barack Obama put our song on his Spotify playlist as one of his favorite songs, and Elton John got into the band, and Howard Stern and Bruce Springsteen and all these people that started to elevate the name Low Cut Connie. I knew that it was time. I had sort of reached a level where I needed to fully commit and do it 365 days a year. Uh, so, Paul, it ain't easy. Rock and roll ain't easy, right? And just keep putting a band together, keeping a band together, and lasting, just surviving. It's really like pushing a boulder up a mountain. And Private Lives is the first album that I put together after I sort of got over a hump in the United States, where I realized that I'd sort of made it to a level where I'm going to stick around for a while. You know, now my focus is on growing Low Cut Connie internationally, which is what has brought us to Australia. We have a lot of fans in Brazil and Europe. I have a lot of listeners and viewers in Japan and South Africa. And finally, now on this record, we're finally starting to reach people in other parts of the world. And the technology, just like this call we're doing right now, has improved during the last few years to help me to do so.
Mm. You mentioned Barack Obama in there, and you later got the opportunity to go to the White House and meet him.
I
Just
did.
take me through that whole experience for you.
Well, I was working as a teacher. I was still teaching and just going into debt, trying to keep the band afloat. And I woke up one day and I had a zillion phone calls, a zillion text messages and emails. Barack Obama had put out a Spotify playlist of his 20 favorite songs. And this is something he has done every year since, but this was the first year that he did it, 2015. And it was the Rolling Stones. I see your Stones necklace, so I know you're a Stones fan. Bob Dylan, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, Sly and the Family Stone, Common, Low Cut Connie. Now remember, Paul, we never got signed. I never got signed to a label. I didn't get signed to a big label. I didn't get signed to a small label. Everybody turned me down. So I was just like Rocky Balboa. I was the underdog trying to get my band into the conversation, trying to get us on the radio, trying to get us in newspapers and magazines and make fans, even though we didn't have money and we didn't have, a label behind us. So when Barack Obama put that song on his list, it was national news in the United States. And it was a big deal. And he knew that it would be a big deal for us, and he chose us. And then I got invited, and I got to go to the White House, and I spent about 4 minutes with him. And he's just, I'm not going to tell you everything because some of it is just in my heart. But he said, Adam, I like what you're doing. I like your style. Keep it up. And Paul, that meant everything to me. Everything to me. Like, it put wind in my sails. It made me realize your art is reaching people. Even though the industry hasn't picked up on it yet, people are responding to it. And you need to commit. You need to commit, and you need to try and push this art out there in a bigger way so you can reach as many people as you can.
Did you ask him how he discovered you?
No, I was a bit tongue-tied. I don't typically get starstruck, but I was a little bit off my game because I didn't quite believe that it was real until it was happening.
Mm. What about Elton John? How did he come across Low Cut Connie?
Well, I should say I don't know specifically how Elton found out about Low Cut Connie, but I don't think it's a surprise to any of us music people that Elton John would find great obscure music because his whole life he's been a major record collector, just like you. And he always would go to Tower Records, very famously would go to Tower Records and look at what came out that week and buy 4 copies of the records he liked for all of his houses. And he's always been looking for great new talent and trying to elevate talent. And so I don't specifically know how he heard of Low Cut Connie. Of course, somebody probably said, there's this kid, he's a piano player, he's flamboyant, he's outrageous like you. You got to check this out. I don't know how it happened, but you know what, Paul? It's nice because we've become pals, and he's been so supportive. In fact, he just played our new single, Help Me, just yesterday on his radio show.
You've performed for Seth Meyers. I'm a big fan of Seth. I watch Seth every day down here. What was that like to
Oh,
be on that
good.
show?
Nicest guy, funny guy, and he took a chance on us again. Paul, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but it's very, very rare that a band or a musical artist that is not on a big label would get to be on primetime network television. And so Seth Meyers and his team, they took a chance on us. They realized that there was something going on with Low Cut Connie, and that it didn't matter that we weren't on a label. And they booked us. And then the next thing was, because we had a song called Beverly that was a little bit of a hit here in the United States. And they said, you know, we don't want you to do Beverly. Seth Meyers really likes this other song. And the song is called All These Kids Are Way Too High. And I thought, I don't know if that's going to be allowed on television, but they said, we got you. You do your thing. And it was fabulous. And it really helped raise the profile of my music and the performances in the US.
Well, I certainly hope Seth gets you back for the fucking you get for the fucking you got. That
We're
would
gonna
be
have
the
to.
appropriate follow up.
Somebody said we should do the friendship you get for the friendship you got.
You've done occasional covers or regular covers, I guess, over the years. The one that surprised me was the Cardi B cover. Are
Uh-huh.
you a Cardi B fan, or was that just trying to take Cardi B into a credible arena?
No, I'm a fan. I think Cardi is very creative. I think Cardi B is very cutting edge, both visually and lyrically. And she's got an old school rap style. I grew up with rap in the 80s, and her style is very much an 80s rap style, old school. I think that she is an underrated songwriter. I think she's talking about real issues. She's talking about women in a way that other people are not. And you know, maybe it seems like an unlikely thing, but I think anybody that listens to my music or watches my performances would know I have a very, very wide range of music that I listen to and like. And I especially gravitate towards natural born performers, people that just have a glow about them. Prince, James Brown, Little Richard, these are natural performers, right? Bruce Springsteen is a natural performer. And Cardi B, she's got it. She's got it. She's not boring ever for 1 second.
Hmm. Well, Adam, it's been great to catch up with you and hear the story. We are just hearing about a 10-year career in Australia, pretty much for the first time with this new album with Private Lives. So hopefully this sort of elevates it to the point that one of these days when we can get back on a plane again and travel, we might see you down here live.
I cannot wait. We have a lot of pals down there in Australia who've been waiting for years for this moment. I want to thank you for being one of the pioneers. Paul, again, I will do another Zoom call with somebody in Australia, but you will always be my first, my friend. You will always be my first. So I want to thank you for the support. We'll do it again. Keep up the good work. Stay strong. Do not get discouraged. No matter what's going on in the world, we're going to get through this. And I cannot wait to be in Australia with all of my pals down there. Thank you so much.